Yeah. I don't normally speak in Wales, so I always say that anyway. So I'd have to put my subtitles up today, so it's great. Like, so just to let you know, thank you. Just to let you know, I'm not just this massive father's campaign. I actually campaign for all parents. I actually started a campaign for the mother and baby unit in Wales. Incredible to think that we haven't got one mother and baby unit actually in the whole of Wales, which is actually shocking when you think of it. You know, so I support all parents, because by supporting all parents for their mental health has far better outcomes for that child. So even though I come across as a father's mental health campaigner, nobody was actually talking about fathers in 2011, so I decided to try and change that. So this is the hardest part of my talk, because it's from a lived experience. I didn't know nothing about mental health, I'll be honest with you. Growing up in a mining community, it was a case, I guess, go down to the pub, let's have a couple of pints. So it wasn't until my wife actually had, it was a traumatic experience in the labour ward. After 22 hours labour, I remember the doctors come rushing in, and they said, Mr. Williams, your wife's got an emergency C-section, we need to get into theatre quick. And it was at that point that I had my first ever panic attack. Never had a panic attack ever before in my life, because I honestly thought my wife and baby were going to die in our labour ward. And even today, I won't talk too much about that labour experience, because even the thought of going, and seeing things, what I witnessed was actually, later on was causing me to have nightmares, etc., which I'll talk about later on. So, like I said, I'm from a community up in the Ogmore Valley. Anyone from Ogmore Valley? No? No, I don't think so. And my background's youth work as well. I'm a voluntary youth work. That youth club actually helped me as a child, because unfortunately, a lot of my low self-esteem came from school. I was actually diagnosed at 40 with ADHD and dyslexia, believe it or not. People, that's another topic. But so I had a lot of low self-esteem before I became a parent. That, like I said, that youth club helped me, and it wasn't until my wife went on to have severe postnatal depression. There's different levels of depression, as we know, but it wasn't until my wife had severe postnatal depression, I had to give up work. I was in a sales job, earning good money then, a lot better money I want now, but I love my work now. But it wasn't until that time I had to give up work. I looked after my wife, who I love so much, obviously the baby. The stigma around mental health 14 years ago, I couldn't tell anyone that my wife was suffering from postnatal depression. We were worried about social services with the baby taken off us. But what I will say is, I didn't get an overwhelming feeling of love for my son initially, because I was just relieved they were both alive, really, after that experience. And then you start doubting yourself as a man, a father. Am I good enough to be a dad, like mums do? Am I good enough to support my family? Because after all, I was using credit cards, because I was out of work, I had a mortgage to pay. So a lot of things happen in a short space of time. I know I'm only here for 30 minutes, so it's harder doing a talk for 30 minutes than an hour, but what I will say is that I was starting to get depressed myself in the postnatal period as well. First, I was starting to get suicidal thoughts around about the 3 to 4 month mark, thinking my wife and baby would be better off without me. I started thinking that if this bus hits me now today, I won't have to worry about anything. I remember my personality totally changed during that time as well. I remember punching the sofa and busting my hand, trying to pick fights with bouncers, not because I had a chance of beating them up or nothing. It's another form of self-harm, because obviously when you're getting hit, it's taking away that emotional feeling. It came to the point that my mother-in-law actually had to come to live with us, which I'm still getting counselling for now, if I'm honest with you. No, seriously. Cut that. Honestly, she's lovely, yeah. But what I will say is that I had a lot of family support when it hit crisis point, because a lot of these families, as we know, haven't got that support. And witnessing my wife go through that time where, and she's happy to say this now, that she didn't want to be here anymore, witnessing that alone was hard enough as well. So I struggled on, because I didn't want to tell my wife how I was feeling, because I didn't want to impact on her mental health. I didn't want to tell any of my best mates anything. I actually struggled in silence for about 5 years. It wasn't until my wife, and it was a couple of things in my family. My grandfather I lost with dementia, and my mother was diagnosed with cancer within the space of a couple of weeks to each other. I thought I was going to lose my mother, and eventually my mental health deteriorated even more then, to a point where I actually had a breakdown in 2011, to a point where my body just shut down. I couldn't keep it going anymore because my coping skill during that time was drinking. And I wasn't dependent, but that's my positive coping skill at that time. Negative coping skill was drinking. That's all I've all been told. Let's go down the pub, have a couple of pints. So after my recovery and going into community mental health services to find out I was diagnosed with ADHD, it was a fact that I was in a gym one day and I said to this mate, I can say it in here because everyone knows this, I said, can I borrow the weights, but? And I said, yeah, all right, but you can have it, yeah. He said, I got to go to NHS Prams. And I said, I just started working in a hospital in Ely. I said, what hospital, what's that? He said, my wife's got postnatal depression. I said, no way. I said, my wife had postnatal depression too. No way. So all of a sudden, we were having this conversation within 5 minutes. I told that guy more in 5 minutes than I told my best mates of 30 years. Because he understands. And I realized Brian actually lost his father years ago through suicide. He kept that in his head for years. His wife had severe postnatal depression, and himself went on to have a breakdown and lost his house and business. So like I said, like fathers got a history of depression, anxiety, and traumas before they becomes parents. So that's the whole point I'm trying to get across today. So anyway, I started going on. I said, this can't be right, Why don't we talk about dads? So I said, fathers reaching out. Now, fathers reaching out was only to support fathers with their wives with postnatal depression. But it wasn't until I was actually talking to these dads, using my sales and communication skills and listening skills, that I found they were suffering too. And these are some of the things I came across as well. Extreme cases, there was violence. There was no violence before that baby was there. Anger was a big thing. The personalities changes, avoiding situations, overworking. The dad would rather be in work and deal with actually going home. And dads can't bond with their children either, like we know with mums. So there's loads of reasons why fathers were struggling during this time. They were already suffering in the workplace. Now the baby comes along. They've got to stay in a job they hate, which is causing them anxiety and depression. So I've spoken to about 2,000 dads, not just in the UK, but overseas. And even this week now, I spoke to a dad who's having trouble bonding with his daughter because he was expecting a son. So, it's loads of factors. These men are really keeping it depressed. And as we know, it's hard enough to talk about mental health, especially men. Because what I will say to you guys, the biggest killer in men under 50 is suicide. It's killing more men than cancer. Yet we're still not doing any sort of asking dad how he's feeling. Because a lot of these men will go into other services, like mums years ago, because there was no awareness, no education, that dads actually suffer from postnatal depression as well. This myth about the hormones, hormone changes dads too. There's a hormone change with dads too, I will explain better. But 60% to 80% of women will actually get some sort of baby blues. But you can ask any professional or any mum, there's no one reason why that mum will get postnatal depression. It could be loads of factors why. And same as dads. Mums and dads got mental health, and sometimes it's either good or bad. So, like I said, you just got to get yourself out there. So I started raising awareness on TV, going on radio stations, sharing my experience personally, first of all. But then I wanted to think, hang on, I got all these voices, or dads, I should say, telling me about their own experiences. So I was lucky enough to meet Dr. Jane Hanley and Amy Brown in 2012 as well. And obviously I learned more about perinatal mental health, and because obviously I wasn't from an academic background. And then we put things together then, and then trying to educate people. Now, Best Beginnings, which is a fantastic resource as well. There's loads of clips about Best Beginnings. I know you're going to hear a wonderful speaker later on. But Best Beginnings, I've got some really good education tips for dads as well on it. It's loads. It's a fantastic resource, just to let you know. And that's what it's about. It's about educating people. And even the royal family are talking about mental health now. And William said about the fathers, about their mental health, which is really important. And like I say, I've got to say, I'm not a father's campaign. I campaign for all parents. I'm actually a campaigner for the mothers for mothers. But believe it or not, there's no mention of the word fathers on CG 192 NICE guidelines. No word mention of fathers whatsoever. Nothing. So if dad is the only one struggling, the only one, that impacts on the mother's mental health and has an impact on her relationship, the child's development. It goes on and on. So like I said, I set up International Father's Mental Health Day, not because it's not just a UK situation concern, it's actually a global concern. And like I mentioned earlier on, it's just raising awareness, working with other professionals to actually write, because I'm actually dyslexic, so I can't actually write half of this stuff anyway, so just so that you know. So, but I didn't find that out till I was 40 years of age, because it interlinks with ADHD and other stuff. So it's working with other professionals, but it's actually that personal experience and actually talking to dads, which has given me that knowledge that some of the professionals are now learning as well. So it works two ways. I'm just going to show you that slide there, which I mentioned earlier on. But a lot of these men actually go into crisis point, hits crisis point. And as we know, early prevention not only saves money, it saves lives as well. So early we can actually screen these dads, or whoever does it. I know the services are so stretched, I'm not saying that. But somebody has to be talking to dad as well. Has to be talking to dad. And like I mentioned, the World Health Organization doesn't recommend screening dads, when both mum and dad has got mental health. Everyone's got mental health. Everyone in the room got mental health. We talk about depression as mental health. No, we all got mental health, like physical health. But it's either good or bad. The dads are getting the same thoughts and feelings like mums too. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Am I, can I provide for my family? The relationship change, the lack of sleep, it goes on and on. But we've known this since probably earlier than 1991. And Paul Ronadani, some of the work he says, it has a better outcome when dad is supported for that child's development too. And this is one of the research, because a lot of people don't realize that PTSD is actually an anxiety disorder, either witnessing or experiencing a life-threatening event. And I've had dads in the army who's come to me and said, Mark, what I witnessed in our labour ward, and the thought, and I lost, obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail, was sometimes hard, because they say loved ones in our labour ward sometimes, The flashbacks, the nightmares. I remember getting these nightmares thinking my wife had died, waking up, not so much flashbacks, but thinking, oh my gosh, just worrying where she is, or where the baby is. I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't until years later, when I was getting the proper specialist help and actually speaking to the people who are in the field as well. But so many dads are actually not getting the support, because like I mentioned, the second baby comes along, the anxiety during the antenatal period is going to be higher, because now that dad has got to go into a labour ward where he witnessed the trauma first time round. Even the smell can trigger off trauma. And the thought and the lack of communication in a labour ward sometimes. Some dads are stuck in a corner, don't really know what's going on. It takes a 5-minute conversation, guys. How are you doing? Give them a leaflet, anything, to make sure that all parents ask. Because I work in some sort of units. What trauma looks to me is totally different to him. So we need to ask Dad how he's feeling as well. Which I mentioned earlier on, the hormone changes, which I haven't got time to talk about. But there is a hormone change in dads too. And like I said, dads struggle to bond with their children too. We know about the fathers who are not in relationships with their children. Well, it's easy to walk away if you can't bond with a child. Dads can't bond with their children too. They find it hard as well. And it looks different in dads and mothers postnatal depression. The dad is avoiding situations, drinking, he doesn't want to bother the baby. Ask him, why is his behaviour changing because since the baby's been born? If mum is picked up, if that was mum, it's picked up more now because there's more awareness about postnatal depression. And what happens with birth trauma, PTSD as well, it does overlap with postnatal depression sometimes. You get some of the symptoms as well. So obviously, as we know, both need to be treated differently. And this is just one dad's story. So anxiety is actually higher in men and depression. And it's actually up to 16%. I missed the one there, sorry, but it is actually higher. But we know. And these are signs and symptoms. So if you Google the NCT, the National Childbirth Trust today, and put dads postnatal depression, you will see all the signs and symptoms. You can maybe copy and paste it onto mums. It's exactly the same. You'll find, like I said earlier on, it's more, the behavior will change around this time. Thoughts. Still getting stories that, you know, if during that time, health visitor, you know, I'm afraid of going to health visitors, as a professional to understand, you know, it's a case of like, you know, the lack of sleep, that's hard enough as well. But it's so, the stories I'm getting, even now today, is we need to start changing to think of a more holistic approach, because the relationships are ending when, if there's proper support in place, you know, it can, you know, it got so far better outcomes, like I mentioned. The change in behavior is a big thing with dads, massively. And this is never a dad story. Sometimes a dad whose first partner has gone through postnatal depression, and then they haven't told the second partner, and then they're worried that the current partner is going to have postnatal depression. That's another factor I've come across. But birth trauma amongst dads, I think, witnessing what they've witnessed, my experience wasn't half as bad as some of these dads. Not even half as bad. Some of these dads are really, and grandparents you've got to remember as well. Not just dads, all grandparents who are witnessing this. They've got to have some sort of understanding, or at least asked or signposted or information out there, something. So 1 in 10 dads actually suffer from postnatal depression, believe it or not. 1 in 10. So there's 735 live births, I think, average in the UK. So that's 75,000 dads who are suffering in silence out there today. 1 in 10. It was always 1 in 10 for mothers for years. But now we know it's much higher than that, because the education and the screening is actually out there. We're actually screening mothers with the Edinburgh Postnatal Depression Scale, because we know that a lot of these men actually getting diagnosed with just depression years later. Because I was never diagnosed with any sort of PTSD or postnatal depression or anything, because it was never picked up until years later. But I would have been, and that's the point. A lot of these men are going into other services, alcohol, drugs. But really, when you ask them, when was the first time you ever felt really depression, a lot of these dads I speak to is around about this time. So 1 in 10, at least 1 in 10, I know it's far higher. Like I mentioned, dads think, are they good enough as well? You got low self-esteem. Being told, knock back throughout, you know, before they become parents. Sorry, I'm talking over that side. I should be over here as well. Sorry. So you can see. And paternal OCD. So mums, as you know, the intrusive thoughts. Dads get the intrusive thoughts, they're going to bash the baby's head against the bath. So what they do, they avoid a nappy change or the bathing, and they go down the pub. The dads get the intrusive thoughts, like mums. But what we do, we think, oh, he's a bad father. He doesn't want to bother with baby. We don't ask that time to find, why is he behaving that way? We need to take a little bit of time. I'm not saying in all dads, some dads are bad dads, but sometimes it's a case of asking, how are you feeling? Because dad's got a history of OCD as well as mums. Like I mentioned just now, I'm going ahead of myself again. Dads have got a history of OCD as well. So, like he's mentioned earlier on, if the mother's got postnatal depression, it's up to 50% chance the father is going to develop depression too. Up to 50%. But my argument is, if dad is the only one struggling, well, it's got to be up to 50% for mum as well. And that's your point. Sometimes it is only the dad who is struggling, not the mum. There's many reasons why men will suffer from postnatal depression. Many reasons. The only way I describe it to my friends, if there was no baby or pregnancy, that man wouldn't be depressed in that period of time. That's the only way I can describe it. As simple as I can. I'm not going to go on to it. I'm going to skip some of these slides because obviously you've got 30 minutes. This is one of the most important slides. I'm actually put it at the end. Have anyone seen the Mums to Still Face experiment? Yeah? Well, there's one for dads now as well. I think it's had over 500,000 views as well. And I showed this at a conference, and I just looked around the room. It was incredible. Guys, if there's one thing you take away from today, and my phone number, if you want me to book me again as well, have a look at that still face experiment. Seriously, it just makes you realise the importance of father's mental health as well. So like I said, fatherhood has totally changed when my father was a minor. Totally changed now. There's more single dads bringing up their children alone. There's more stay-at-home dads bringing up their children. They're probably more isolated than any time ever. Because a lot of dads, the mother is actually the breadwinner, going to work now, and the dad's staying home, and the amount of dads are saying to me, Mark, I'm totally isolated. Nobody, there's no groups for me to go to, whatever. We got to think it has totally changed fatherhood. Dads want to spend more time with their children. We know about social media, which I'll explain later on. And we got to think of same-sex couples as well. We got to start changing with the times. Got to start changing with times. And one of the biggest things I get is social media. When everyone puts their lovely photographs as a family unit, the pressures now for dads and mothers to seeing the photographs have changed a lot. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? Look at somebody down the street, look what they got for their child. So there's loads of reasons why men and women get post-depression, because the pressures are totally different. And young dads and older dads now as well. Coming from a youth background, it's one of my passions. It was unfortunate, there was a lot of suicides in Bridgend 10 years ago. I'm not going to say too much about that. But so as a youth worker, I've seen how suicide can affect not just families but communities as well. And a lot of young dads I speak to, I haven't given them the chance, and they judge before they, having a child. And then when they become parents, and I was 30 years of age going through this, and I had I had a nice house, still got a house out, a lot of good stuff going on. But a lot of these men, young dads, haven't got that. And we're judging too quick, we are, guys. Judging too quick. And this is a landmark case. So there's another safeguarding reason why we should be supporting dads as well. In 2011, a landmark case, but we're still not doing any screening of dads. And we need to start educating the media, like Amy just said now as well. The stigma around mental health is a lot better than it was when I first started doing the father stuff, but we still got a long way to go. Because like I keep saying, the biggest killer in men under 50 is suicide. And a lot of these men will actually go on to take their lives suffering from postnatal depression. Because that gentleman on your right-hand side was diagnosed with postnatal depression. And in March, his ex-wife came out, and he took his life. So that's probably one of the first dads we know who've actually gone on from suffering from postnatal depression to go on to take his life. So, how many is there? Because if you have a look at November, 500 million male suicides around the world. 500 million by November. Male suicides. How many of them are dads? And last one off is, I was involved with the Dads in Distress report with the National Childbirth Trust. And the report came out that 38% of dads are worried about their own mental health, and 73% of dads are worried about their partner's mental health. And some of the causes, as you can see, is underneath. So if you Google, it's all Google now, isn't it? Dads in Distress, NCT, you can see the full report. And this is some of the training I'm doing. I'll talk about it again on that. Yeah. And I got a book out as well, just so you know. So, but all the money goes to charity. Is a charity with Trigger Trust. So I can be honest, I get £1 a book, but just so you know. The amount of money I've spent, honestly, you won't believe it. But the most important thing, the reason about the book is, when you read the book, there'll be other dads thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like that too, because when I was going through it, I didn't know anyone suffering from mental health or depression or whatever, let alone, you know, fathers who were post-depression or so that's the whole point of the book as well. And that's my number on there, so just let you know as well. So if I don't do a lot of, honestly, and an art, I don't do hardly anything in Wales. I work in a Heath Hospital on a totally different project, you won't believe it, on C7. If anyone's in a Heath Hospital, come to see me. But next year I'm hoping to do this full time, and I want to do more in Wales because there's nothing glamorous staying in a hotel room, honestly, without your family. So yeah, come and, you know, if there's anyone in Wales want me to speak or do some project together, just let me know, please. And that's the still face experiment, which I was talking about earlier on as well.